Texans. So Dameon Pierce not expected to play as the Texans take on the Chiefs. It's going to be Rex Burkhead and Dario Ogunbowale. Pete, which of the two running backs do you think makes the most sense for Houston, knowing that they're going to most likely be chasing points?
Burkhead. I don't think there's any question about that. I think if you're playing the Chiefs, you're going to be chasing points, like you said, and he's better in the passing game. So I would go Burkhead.
The only thing I worry about that is if Burkhead's the early downs guy, I don't think they're going to make him a 3-down guy. So are they going to make Dario Ogunbowale the early downs guy?
Maybe.
I mean, they might.
Maybe.
Mostly, I just don't want to use either one of these guys.
I kind of feel like we could see a good game, though, from Burkhead, just because
Catching the ball out of the
catching the ball in the backfield, down big,
chasing points, yeah.
You know, and it may be his last hurrah, you know, for a guy who's most likely going to be at best second string, maybe third string next year, depending on what Houston does with their backfield in terms of Dameon Pierce with his future. So it's a gamble either way. I think you're probably the safer option is to avoid them if you can. Hopefully you're not in that kind of situation. I know for one league for me, I am stuck because I had Dameon Pierce and no other options available on waivers. So I'm going to play Rex Burkhead and just hope maybe he falls into the end zone. We did see a surprise game from this Texans backfield last week against the Cowboys, a good run defense, and Pierce struggled. The Ravens backfield and offense really is a lot of things going on here. So Tyler Huntley's in the concussion protocol, and J.K. Dobbins says he's not all the way back yet. We'll start with Huntley here, just looking at the scenario with him in terms of which quarterback do we expect to see. The fact that he practiced on Tuesday, clearly a good sign. Remember John Harbaugh said following the game that he's hoping that he's going to play in Saturday's game. So do we expect to see him out there against the Browns?
Yes, I think he's going to play this week. I mean, I can't say definitively. You never know if a guy has a setback or whatever, but you mentioned it. The progress he's making seems to be good, and that's usually a sign that the guys are going to play. I bet the game was on Sunday, he'd definitely play, but I do think he'll play this week.
How are you approaching it in terms of the pass catchers there for Baltimore?
I'm probably going to start Mark Andrews, even though I'm scared of what the floor is. Everybody else, I don't have much interest in.
If it's Huntley or if it's
really with either one, but I would have much more interest in DeMarcus Robinson with Huntley than I would with anybody else.
I keep forgetting Anthony Brown's name for whatever reason.
Yeah,
I apologize.
It's Oregon quarterback. Yeah.
How do you anticipate this passing game working? Because Mark Andrews has been bad, really, for a good stretch.
Well, the passing game has been bad. The passing game period has been bad. No matter who's played quarterback, it hasn't been good. So I don't expect anything different here. I don't think whoever plays quarterback.
Do you see a good game for Mark Andrews?
No, I don't.
Well, I don't necessarily see a good game for him, but like the other day on the podcast.
He's a tight end with a pulse, is that what you're going to say?
No, Dave mentioned that he had been 12 fantasy points or worse in like 5 straight games, and that's awful. But 12 fantasy points is also tight end 2 this season. So like he's going to be bad compared to what we expected from him, but I still think he's going to be decent compared to the other tight ends.
Give me numbers.
4 catches, 55 yards, no score.
which
is a top 10 tight end.
Okay, but Ingram's coming off a 2-game stretch where he's clearly incredible. Right. Last week, incredible. Greg Dulcich has the free space, and no Cortland Sutton, but a backup quarterback.
Okay.
Trying to think anybody. David Njoku in the same game, coming off.
I don't love Njoku. I'm a little bit worried about him. So he's low end. Ingram's the one guy, and right now I have it Andrews at 5, Ingram at 6. But he's the one guy that I'd consider starting Ingram over.
Let's have a movement to eliminate the tight end position from fantasy and play.
You wouldn't be alone.
Play an extra receiver.
Well, a lot of people, what they are starting to do is play just another flex. And so you get an opportunity to play another flex. But you can also play a tight end if you want to, so Kelsey or Andrews when he's typically right.
I like that.
I think we'll probably see next year it'll be a little bit better. I mean, this was a weird year with Andrews falling off and Kittle and Waller.
Every year.
But it's been worse even before. Like in the past, normally 10 fantasy points per game get you to be tight end 12. Right. Now it's 8.
You treat tight ends like I treat running backs.
Yeah. Not a good thing. Let's talk about J.K. Dobbins here. So here's what Dobbins said. I'm going to continue to get better, and hopefully those 100-yard games will start turning into 200-yard games, maybe. And according to ESPN, he was upset about his 4th carry of the game when he got the 44-yard run and got brought down by Minkah Fitzpatrick 4 yards shy of the end zone. He continued to say, I'm still not in the shape that I need to be in because I would have never gotten caught, so I'm pretty upset about that, but it's only going to keep getting better. How much better can J.K. Dobbins be?
Oh, I mean, he could be a top 10 running back for the rest of the season. The only thing that worries you about that is, like, we saw Gus Edwards come back and have one really good game and then pull his hamstring the next week because he wasn't all the way back. So you do worry that there's still some risk of re-injury. But if he can get to be what J.K. Dobbins was as a rookie, he could be a top 10 running back, a league winner in the fantasy playoffs.
I agree. I mean, I like what I saw from him last week. Again, though, when a guy comes back from injury, like you mentioned, it's not just his knee, it's something else happening from compensating for the knee. You worry about it. But if he's cleared, he's healthy, and he's playing, he's right. He's going to get better and better each and every week.
It is a dream absolute dream matchup against the Browns. The game you're referencing for Gus Edwards was against the Browns, Week 7, 16 carries, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns. Let's go, J.K. Dobbins. All right, the Steelers, as we saw last week, they also lost their quarterback in the same game against Baltimore. And now we officially have Kenny Pickett in the concussion protocol. There was some thought maybe about Mike Tomlin playing or going to practice this week with not only Trubisky but also Rudolph. Who are we going to see, and how is that going to impact the rest of the offense?
I think you'll see Trubisky. I mean, he is the backup quarterback, and I think you'll see him. He played poorly the other day. I mean, those red zone interceptions were terrible. They were really bad plays. They would have won the football game if it wasn't for Trubisky. And in fact, I think if Pickett were in the game, they would have won the game. So I think Trubisky will start. What do you expect from him? Probably a couple turnovers, a play here and there. I don't expect a ton from him.
Yeah, I don't think we'll do the difference between real NFL and fantasy land now, because in that game he played 85% of the snaps and threw for 276 yards. That would be the second best game of Kenny Pickett's season. I don't think this is a downgrade for Deontay Johnson or for Pat Freiermuth. It's probably a downgrade for George Pickens because he hasn't had the same connection with Pickens that Pickett did.
Oh, you got to feel like it's an upgrade for Deontay Johnson. His best games of the season came with Trubisky. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a downgrade for Pickens, but this is a secondary that can be beat. It's just a matter of will Trubisky not vomit all over himself and beat these guys. So I think hopefully Deontay Johnson...
Although they play better, though. They've been playing better in the secondary.
They have, and they got some turnovers against Geno Smith, but they also gave up 3 touchdowns to Geno Smith. And so garbage time in fantasy land, Pete, sometimes matters, and we like that, even if that's
Where did that come from, the fantasy
Steelers.
land?
Our favorite GM, former
Rick
GM.
Spielman. Oh, yeah.
Maybe
former
future
GM.
president.
Don't say GM. Former GM.
Former GM, Rick Spielman. Another quarterback injury that we're keeping an eye on is the Jets quarterback, Mike White, and he's expected to play against the Lions, but he was limited in practice on Wednesday. Pete, he's had one great game against Chicago in his first start. Struggled really, statistically, the last 2 was bad against the Bills, but he was beat up in that game. An injured Mike White taking on what is the best matchup for Fantasyland against the Lions. How good can he be this week?
I think he'll be okay. I don't think he's going to be put up 330 and 3 or anything like that, but I think he could put up 265, 270 and 2 because the Lions aren't good on defense. They've been better. I mean, they've improved on defense. So it's, you can't just say
their run defense has been fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, they've improved period on defense. So I don't think it's going to be a monster game, but I think when you look at it, don't you think the Lions will score again? I mean, the Jets defense is good.
Jared Goff outdoors away from, on the road has been abysmal.
I get it.
Absolutely
and it's good defense.
abysmal.
And it's a good defense.
Yeah.
So I still think they'll score. I think they're going to have a good day.
Yeah, Pete said not 330 and 3. I do think he might get 330 though. I think he's going to throw the ball 40 plus times. And what he's also had is like that Vikings matchup was supposed to be a good one, and that didn't go the way we thought that it would. But he threw for 369 yards. He was sitting in the end zone. He had the great matchup against the Bears. He was awesome. He had the bad matchup at Buffalo last week. He was terrible. I think he'll be pretty good this week.
Well, he got brutalized at Buffalo last week.
And the game against Minnesota and against Buffalo on the road. He's coming back home. First good game was at home against Cincinnati. The crowd will be screaming, and they'll probably be wearing those Mike White T-shirts that our favorite GM loves so much. How much do you like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Tyler Conklin this week? We don't know if Corey Davis is going to play. He did not practice on Wednesday.
Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin are low-end number 1 options, right around number 12 at their positions. I think Elijah Moore is a boom-bust flex, maybe a number 3 wide receiver if everything goes right.
10
so
targets.
You must have Garrett Wilson up really high.
Like 10 or 12.
Yeah.
I think he's 8 for me. Just big game coming. I think you've seen it. Like the floor has been basically 13 PPR points. He's been an absolute star, and as we've illustrated time and time again, anybody not named Zach Wilson has been great for Garrett Wilson. The 49ers are not going to have Deebo Samuel on Thursday against Seattle, and they're not going to have him, according to Kyle Shanahan, maybe for 3 weeks. So, Pete, how does the offense change without Deebo Samuel there, knowing that Brock Purdy is still working his way through becoming the starter?
Well, I think it takes away the ability to put him in the backfield. I mean, obviously, it puts more of a run pressure on McCaffrey, I think, which is not a bad thing, by the way. He can handle it. And I think it helps Ayuk on the outside. He had been starting to really come on this season anyways, but I think it helps him a little bit. And at some point, let's hope it's this week, George Kittle's going to start looking like George Kittle, isn't he?
You need him.
Well, if he's ever going to do it, it would be in this matchup against Seattle. I mean, it's Arizona and Seattle are by far the 2 best matchups for tight ends. So this should be a George Kittle week. I worry a little bit about Ayuk just because I don't know how many passes Brock Purdy's going to throw. I think it depends on how successful Geno Smith is against that 49ers defense. If he throws 21 passes like he did last week, sure, he scored the touchdown, but he had 2 catches.
But you would anticipate, though, if it's 21 passes.
6 targets for Ayuk?
And that's really kind of all he needs, in this type of matchup. Now, you would like to see more,
right?
Obviously, but I don't know if it's all of a sudden they're going to shift to Juwan Jennings or Ray McCloud, or Ray McDonald, excuse me, or starting to get those other guys involved. You would think it's going to be Ayuk and Kittle.
I think it's going to be Ayuk and Kittle. I mean, it has to. Kittle's
it's going to be McCaffrey first.
Obviously.
Dump Don't.
And run.
Yeah.
I mean, the Seattle hasn't been good against the run either.
I said it early this week. I think if you're looking for a good sleeper this week, Jordan Mason, he's been 51 yards or more in the 2 games without Elijah Mitchell. This feels like, okay, carries that are gone from Deebo, maybe a couple more go to Mason. And now maybe if they're winning the game, you see a little bit more Mason in the fourth quarter. So I don't think he's a bad play. He's got to score. He's going to give you empty numbers if he doesn't, but could be a good sleeper on Thursday night. The Rams are not going to have Cooper Kupp. Sean McVay saying that most likely he's not going to return this year with the ankle injury, which made a lot of sense, with the way the team is going. Just your impressions, Pete, of Baker Mayfield stepping in now. He's going to start, at least for this week, against the Packers, and what the other receivers are potentially going to do. Skoranek, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, who steps up?
Well, he didn't know the offense last week, and he still played pretty well. So now he knows the offense. But they also know him, and they know he's going to be playing. So it's a different situation for him as well. I think Van Jefferson's the guy. You can see he kind of leaned on him a little bit. I mean, Skoranek had the good day, but I think Van Jefferson caught the touchdown pass, and I think Van Jefferson's going to be the guy going forward in this game. He's going to go after.
Rank the receivers from.
I would go Tutu Atwell, then Van Jefferson, then Skoranek, and mostly just because we never give Vince Skoranek any credit for anything. But he did have he had the second most targets. Jefferson, if it wasn't for that touchdown, would have been an afterthought in that game.
He would have been. Obviously, the big play potential is going to be with Jefferson. I'm going to give it a little lean towards Skoranek. I think he's the best one to go to. I don't know if Baker is going to connect with Tutu Atwell in this game against the Packers, but we'll see. He's not a bad play at all.
The only thing with Tutu Atwell is you could see they're trying to get him going for next year.
Yeah.
You can see that's what they're trying to do.
They have no draft capital.
I know. They got to get him going.
Where's Cooper Kupp's dynasty value right now?
He is a low-end number 1 wide receiver who could fall off the face of the earth at any moment, because that's what he's reaching that age, 29, 30 years old, where if something goes wrong at the start of last year, you could see him fall into the 30s really quick. But he also might be the best wide receiver in fantasy next year.
You're burying him.
Well, you can see Matthew Stafford. You can see Matthew Stafford not playing again. You could see Sean McVay leaving the team. I mean, those are 2 disastrous situations for him. If that.
So you buried Darren Waller and you buried Cooper Kupp this year. Wow.
Look what happened to Mike Evans this year.
You two are mean.
He disappeared.
You've hoisted up Tua Tagovailoa and then buried Tua Tagovailoa.
I didn't bury him.
You kind of did the other day. Romeo Dobbs expected to return for the Packers. What's the impact on Christian Watson and potentially Allen Lazard?
Hopefully none. Hopefully it's Christian Watson and Allen Lazard dominating the targets, and Dobbs doesn't make any difference. I do think there's a possibility he could take one of those shot plays away from Watson, and if Watson doesn't hit a shot play, he's not getting enough volume to be a must-start guy. So there's a little bit of risk to Watson, I would say, more than Lazard, but you're still starting with number 2.
How do you like Aaron Rodgers in this game?
I think this could be an Aaron Rodgers game. I do. That's a bad defense. I mean, they're not a good defense. I think there's opportunity against them to hit some shots down the field.
They gave up, prior to shutting down Derek Carr last week, over 900 passing yards to Andy Dalton, Patrick Mahomes, who had the worst game of the trio,
and
Geno Smith.
Yeah.
And so we could see Aaron Rodgers, who was very good at home, not good on the road, but his last 2 home games, against Dallas being one of them,